Richard Crouse.
And I don't want to reinvent myself for the sake of, for the sake of media or publicity. I don't want to reinvent myself as a foodie. I'm not a foodie. I'm a visualizer. I'm a storyteller, and I want to remain that. And tomorrow, if it's going to be, like I said, about cricket, then I will do it about cricket. Baseball, unlikely. Ice hockey, absolutely not. It's too violent for me. But cooking with Stella, yeah.
Well, where then, so you're not a foodie, we've established that. Where did the idea then come from?
Well, the idea really came because of the desire to do something about the social disparity between the haves and the have-nots. Not necessarily between foreigners and Indians. It's really the disparate society, the inequality that we have in life. The film, Richard, had begun as when I started thinking of the idea, and before I brought in Deepa, or before Deepa and I joined hands to do the script, it was a serious film. It was not a comedy. I just, as it started unfurling, and I introduced the element of having Canadian diplomats, because it's somewhat based on reality, and my closest friend's daughter was sent from Ottawa as a first secretary, and her husband incidentally worked at the Rideau House at the Governor General's. So I said, oh God, this is a perfect situation for me. And I spoke to them and I said, guys, I'm going to use your idea behind it, and they loved it. And that's how it happened. But it was about the disparity in life. And, in India, it's such a complicated social palette, if you will. It was a serious film, but I didn't, in retrospect, I didn't want to come across as pontificating. I was certainly not qualified for that. I didn't want to stand on a soapbox and, scream about the inequality, injustice of India. That's there for the world to see. So I decided, let's deal with it in humor. And with the advent of the fact that I had touched upon Cameron and Aisha, and Cameron was a chef, I said, okay, let's start dealing with food as the metaphor. Let's not make it a food film, because anybody who'll see the film will come out of it, A, feeling hungry, B, whether they like the film or not, you'll always end up feeling hungry. And, I wanted people to get a bite of the inequality, not a heavy-handed, not a heavy-duty, brain-damaging think about, oh God, we feel so depressed, we want to slash our wrists. I wanted them to slash the skin off the chicken, not their own wrists, if you know what I mean, yeah.
Well, we see the inequality not only between the diplomat herself treats her staff in a way that is different than the way her husband treats them. But it's sort of interesting because you're making a comment there, but he's involved in the service industry himself. But in one level, though, he's involved in it in Canada, although in India it seemed that master. People, it's master, and she's calling him sir and master, and almost refuses to call him by his first name, even though he insists.
Right. Well, that is one of those wonderful contradictions that we love to throw up in a film, and that's what Deepa and I wrote in, is this complexity of character. A person like Michael in a film, who is, of course, like sort of based loosely on a real character, you walk the dog in Ottawa and you pick up the poo behind the dog. In India, I'm not saying you'll have someone pick it up, but the chances are good. Yeah. And so suddenly, from being a normal person who's fending after themselves, you end up having a retinue of staff looking after your interests. I once met a diplomat in New York City who was ready to slash his wrists. Half an hour later, I found out he was a former ambassador from Kathmandu in Nepal, and he had recently returned, and he was so depressed because from having 6 chauffeurs, 16 servants, 15,000 cooks, 20,000 gardeners look after them, and being on the asocial list of everybody, he was actually having to do the laundry, wash their car. It's a real heavy-duty come down. Do you know, Richard, that a diplomat posted in India gets an extra month's salary? They get 13 months' salary because it's considered a hardship posting.
Well, they mention this in the movie. They say it's a bit of a hardship posting, but, no, why so?
I don't know. I mean, I asked myself, if I think if I was sent to Toronto as a diplomat, I should get 13 months because it's such an expensive city. Or New York, let's say if I was sent to Tokyo, I should get 15 months salary. I can understand it. But you live like kings. You live virtually like Maharajas, and we've still got our post-colonial hang-ups, and we treat people with light skin with greater respect for some forsaken reason. I don't understand that, but maybe it's just a hang-up of having been ruled. We haven't quite lost it. And we have this sort of gender hang-up that in this film, very subtly, there are so many references where Michael is referred to as His Excellency and his wife. And the reality, of course, is his wife is the diplomat. He's a mere cook in their eyes. But because he's the Canadian, he's the white person. So I've dealt with it very gently. Some people get it, some people don't. But this is one of the complexities of living in this cauldron that we call India. It's fascinating.
Richard Crouse.